Hello everyone. Welcome back to an interesting English literature lesson today. It's better if you have the anthology with you. Today I have decided to do a poem, universally recognized poem in the poetry section. The poem which I am going to discuss with you is War is Kind by Stephen Crane. Can war be kind? Is war kind? Well, before discussing further, it's better if you get a kind of a little understanding about the poet. By now you know the poem War is Kind is written by Stephen Crane. What do you know about Stephen Crane? Yes, Stephen Crane was an American novelist, a short story writer and a poet. He worked as a war correspondent and a journalist. Remember children, this Stephen Crane died because of tuberculosis at the age of 28. But during that short period of life, he was able to gain international recognition because of his masterpieces. Well, now I think it's better if you go through an activity. Through that, you will get to know more about this poet. I will read the activity for you children. Select the suitable statement and write the letter in the space given. Number 1, Stephen Crane. Number 2, his works also established. You are going to find the correct answer in the given options. Crane's first novel, he won international acclaim. The fifth one, many critics have appreciated his innovative writing skills. The options are for his Civil War novel, The Red Badge of Courage in 1895. B, which are full of vivid intensity, irony and distinctive diction. Don't worry about the meaning. Please go through the given activity and try to match. Through that, you will get to know more about this poet, Stephen Crane. C, option C is one of the most influential realist writers in America. D, the foundations of modern American naturalism. The last option was the Maggie, a girl of the streets. I think by now you would have identified and found the correct answers. Shall we check children? Are you ready? Yes. Stephen Crane is one of the most influential realist writers in America. So you can understand when you read this poem how realistic his perception was. Well, what is the answer for the second one? His works also established the foundations of modern American naturalism. That fact is further endorsed by this poem. When you read in detail, you will understand. See, I hope you would have got that also correct. If you got it wrong, don't worry children. Crane's first novel was The Maggie, a Girl of the Streets. The fourth one, he won international acclaim for his Civil War novel, The Red Badge of Courage in 1895. And I told you he worked as a war correspondent also and a journalist. The last one, yes, you're correct children. The option is B. I will read the sentence for you. Many critics have appreciated his innovative writing skills, yes, which are full of vivid intensity, irony and distinctive diction. I know if you look at the fifth sentence, you will wonder what these words are. Don't worry, as children, those who study literature, you will really happy to see how the words are being used to show certain themes, to convey an idea in an efficient manner, in an effective manner. So his work, the poetry, the novels, many critics have appreciated his innovative, creative writing style, and that is filled with lot of irony. Again, I am reminding you, the poem that I am going to discuss today is War is Kind. Can war be kind? Is war kind? So, the distinctive diction. What is diction? The choice of words. Very simple words the poet had used. Well, before reading the poem, I need you to focus on these questions. Is war kind? Actually, what does war bring us? Who are the people who suffer mostly in a warfare? Are there people to suffer, or do people enjoy in a warfare? Think about these questions, my dear students. How do they suffer? Why do they suffer? All these questions, it's for you to ponder over, think about. And with all these questions in your mind, shall we move on to the poem? The poem, War is Kind. I need you to pay attention to the anthology, the first stanza. Do not weep, maiden, for war is kind, because your lover threw wild hands towards the sky, and the affrighted steed ran on alone. Do not weep, war is kind. Hoarse booming drums of the regiment, little souls who thirst for fight. These men were born to drill and die. The unexplained glory flies above them. Great is the battle god, great and his kingdom. A field where 1,000 corpses lie. Do not weep, babe, for war is kind. Because your father tumbled in the yellow trenches, raged at his breast, gulped and died. Do not weep, war is kind. Swift blazing flag of the regiment, eagle with crest of red and gold. These men were born to drill and die. Point for them the virtue of slaughter. Make plain to them the excellence of killing, and a field where 1,000 corpses lie. Mother, whose heart hung humble as a button on the bright, splendid shroud of your son, do not weep, war is kind, by Stephen Crane. My dear learners, did you understand? I prefer everyone to go through the poem again and read for your understanding. Hope that you have read with me, and if I am to help you with the verses, the stanzas, the first stanza says, do not weep, maiden, for war is kind, because your lover threw wild hands towards the sky. What happened? A maiden is addressed. Who is a maiden? An unmarried girl. And that unmarried girl is crying. Why? Because her lover threw wild hands towards the sky. What could be the reason? This is very, very dark side of the war. Maybe the enemies have come and the soldiers would have surrendered, or maybe due to an attack, after an attack, the only remedy for the soldier was maybe to throw his wild hands. There are things for you to ponder, to think about. And the next line says, and the affrighted steed ran on alone. Affrighted is frightened steed. The horse ran on alone. Did not go with the person. Ran on alone. And this poet is calling this maiden not to weep. How sarcastic this is. Can the war be kind? Is war kind? So this first stanza itself gives you a better idea. This background helps you to understand the war is not kind at all. Right. Now if you look at the second stanza, you hear hoarse booming drums of the regiment, little souls who thirst for fight. Now you can see hoarse booming drums of the regiment refer to the harsh sound of the band, the regiment instruments, the band, the drums of the regiment. Little souls who thirst for fight. These little souls are not the, brave, strong souls, those who can decide their fate. The little souls are the doomed youth, the young ones, insignificant ones, inexperienced ones, the soldiers, those who are going to fight. The thirst for fight, not to drink water, not thirsty and drinking water. They are in a mindset to fight. And the third line says, these men were born to drill and die. See the perception, the society, how cruel it is to send young men to train, to drill and die. The unexplained glory flies above them. And this unexplained glory flies above them. You can understand this glory can be interpreted in different ways. Maybe the flag which is fluttering in the breeze, or the feelings of being in the particular regiment and serving for the country. Sometimes, some lot of soldiers, they think it's better to die for the country. So this glory is unexplained, and you can see it's not on the battleground, it's above them. Can you see the difference, the contrast, the paradox? Great is the battle god, great and his kingdom. And you can see the God is personified here. Battle god is personified. And this battle god and his kingdom, you get, what do you get? A field where 1,000 corpses lie. What are corpses? The dead bodies. And you can see the next stanza, the poet addresses a child, a babe. A field where 1,000 corpses lie. A place where lot of thousands of corpses, dead bodies lie. How sarcastic, how ironic, not for a child to cry. The poet addresses, do not weep, babe, for war is kind. And it is explained further, because your father tumbled in the yellow trenches. Now, yellow trenches are the soldiers dig in the ground narrow places where they can use for protection. Sometimes at the end, they use that for a graveyard, right? A field where 1,000 corpses lie. Do not weep, babe, for war is kind. The poet is addressing a babe, a small child, a very small child, and says, a field where 1,000 corpses lie. That means a ground where lot of dead bodies are lying. Because your father tumbled in the yellow trenches. And the poet is addressing the babe, the child, and asking the father why the child should not cry is because the father tumbled in the yellow trenches. What are trenches? Trenches are the places digged or kept for safety of the soldiers. And after that, those places are used as burial grounds of those soldiers. Yellow trenches refer to and a very unpleasant sight at all. And the other thing, raged at his breast, gulped and died. You know rage, the anger. The soldier was having anger. The other enemies also have anger within them. They swallow that and die. So do not weep, voice kind. Swift blazing flag of the regiment, eagle with crest of red and gold. These men were born to drill and die. Point for them the virtue of slaughter, make plain to them the excellence of killing. So this swift blazing flag of the regiment, eagle with crest of red and gold, refer to the particular patriotic flags after winning war. They have the flag to show their demarcation. And these men, can you understand this point? The men were born to drill and die. And point for them the virtue of slaughter. This virtue of slaughter, can you ever imagine? A virtue of slaughter, slaughtering is killing lot of people. And can you find virtue there? So the poet addresses the flag and says all this. Make plain to them. What is plain? Plain is complain to them the excellence of killing. Next stanza, if you look at it very carefully, you can see the final stanza, the fifth stanza is, and a field where 1,000 corpses lie. A place where a lot of people die. Mother whose heart hung humble as a button. So mother's affection, heart of the mother is going to be hung humble as a button. Where? Where will it be? On the bright, splendid shroud of your son. So the mother is addressed. And on the bright, splendid shroud, can we find a splendid shroud? Shroud is a piece of cloth which is used to cover the dead body, right? And the splendid shroud, can it be splendid, a fine cloth? It's not a fine cloth. And heart of the mother is going to be hung humble as a button. Do not weep, voice kind. How sarcastic, how ironical the poet is conveying that idea. Can you understand very clearly? Stephen Crane has efficiently, effectively used words. Now let's look at the structure of the poem. Very good. There are, by now, because I have explained, you would have understood, there are 5 stanzas. And you can see it is in the free verse. But in between, you get rhyming couplets also. If you look at the first stanza, the kind, first line and the last line. And in the next stanzas, you get a few rhyming words. But mostly you can say it's a free verse. Well, let's look at another activity. Hope you can do this exercise alone. I will read for you, fill in the blanks with the most suitable phrases. Frightened, a horse used or trained for riding, having a low capacity of thinking or insignificant in war, vain, irrational, meaning of victory of war, harsh, deep sound of drums. I hope you are going to get everything correct. Now you listen to me and do the answers, write the answers. The first one, horse booming drums. Please write the answer. You can select from the given phrases. Second one, affrighted. Third, steed. Fourth, little souls. Fifth, unexplained glory. Well, I hope by now you would have completed that activity. What do you mean by horse booming drums? Well, harsh, deep sound of drums. The next one, very good, I hope you got it correct. Affrighted means frightened. Right. The third one, steed. What do you mean by steed? Can you remember? A frightened steed ran on alone. Steed refers to a horse used or trained for riding. Are you ready with the fourth answer? Let's check. Little souls, having a low capacity of thinking or insignificant in war. Now, little souls, do not get the surface meaning. Now, when you read poems, when you critically analyze poems, you have to think beyond the words. So, little souls, we will be explaining or discussing some more questions related to little souls having a low capacity of thinking or insignificant in war. Are you ready with the fifth answer? Unexplained glory. Yes, vain, irrational meaning of victory of war. That means useless, actually no one is going to appreciate the victory of war. So, it is referred to as unexplained glory. That's why, can you remember at the beginning, I told you the Stephen Crane, the poet, had used diction very effectively. Lot of critics have appreciated his way of writing. So, in these few words, you get lot of meaning embedded. Well, shall we do another activity? Then you will clearly understand this poem. Activity 3, which line or word in the poem indicates each of the idea mentioned below? Remember children, you should be able to, even at the exam, you should be able to quote lines. And to support your answer, you should remember important facts, words, phrases given in poems. That's why we have included certain activities. So, this type of activities will give you the concept very clearly. Are you ready? The first one, along narrow halls in the ground that is used as a protection for soldiers. I hope you can remember the answer. Along narrow halls in the ground that is used as a protection for soldiers. If you have the anthology with you, it's easy for you to find the answers. The second one, hope you can find collapsed in the dirty, muddy trenches. Third, died because of his anger. Fourth, wavering flag of the army regiment. Wavering flag of the army regiment. The fifth one, a piece of cloth used to wrap a dead person's body before it is buried. Well, shall we discuss the answers? Remember these lines. Very good. A long narrow hall or halls in the ground that is used as a protection for soldiers is, yes, they are. A long narrow halls in the ground that is used as a protection for soldiers are called trenchers. Trenchers. You get another phrase, second one, collapsed in the dirty, muddy trenches. What is the answer? Tumbled in the yellow trenches. Tumbled, that means what is collapse? Just fall down, right? Collapse, fainted like, right? In the yellow trenches. Trenches are the long narrow halls in the ground, and those are used for protection for soldiers. They just keep their head, that is also covered. Once when the war is over, or sometimes when they have to evacuate, they bury those dead bodies inside those trenches. They are not clean. Everything they have to do in those trenches, they are not like luxury places. This is the background of a war, right? Died because of his anger. Very good. The answer is raged at his breast, gulped and died. What do you mean by that? Rage, that means anger at his breast, because they are in a thirsty to fight. To fight. The enemies also are angry. They are also having this anger. That anger is gulped, swallowed and died. Maybe due to an attack of the enemies. So those who have thirst for killing will die because of that. Right. The fourth one, if you pay attention, wavering flag of the army regiment. Did you find? Yes. Swift blazing flag. Wavering flag of the army regiment. Swift blazing flag is the answer. The last one, it's very important. A piece of cloth used to wrap a dead person's body before it is buried. How do you call it? Can you remember? Well, shroud. Yes, that's correct. Right. I hope you are not fed up with the activities. At the beginning, I have explained in detail, and I hope you can do this also very clearly alone. Complete the given table. The stanzas are there. I have given first, third and the last. Whom does the narrator address in the poem? And please find over whom are those addresses weeping. I think the time given for you is enough. Shall we discuss? Well, in the first stanza, a maiden is addressed. Who is a maiden? Maiden is an unmarried girl. Over whom is she weeping? She is weeping over her lover, soldier lover. Third stanza. Whom does the narrator address in the poem? A babe. A babe is a child. Yes. And over whom is this child or the baby is weeping? Because of the soldier father. Father is a soldier and that babe or the child is crying. You can see the last one, a mother. Mother is addressed and mother is worried about her son. Imagine a situation while the mother is living and what happened to the son. Son is no more. Can you see the pathetic condition? I have given you earlier some questions. Now, who are the victims of this war? When a lover, a father and a son as soldiers, when they lose their lives, who are going to suffer in life? The lovers, the children, the mothers, all in general. So can war be kind? A question where you can think intelligently. But those who glorify the war will definitely say, for the sake of their territorial integrity, they can fight, kill one another. But my dear students, when you are given a question, think about this. Can war be kind? The poet Stephen Crane says, war is kind. He's very tricky. He has used a technique, irony, sarcasm. Through that, you will get to know lot of hidden issues, lot of hidden facts. Well, now I need you to focus on another set of questions. What does the poet want to tell these addressees? How does he address them? Remember to keep all these facts in your mind at this moment. Then you can automatically, when you are given a question, can quote lines in your answers. Right. You are correct, children. The question is, what does the poet want to tell these addressees? Maiden, babe, mother. He says, the poet says, do not weep, war is kind. Can we just stop thinking that war is kind? No, there is lot of meaning in these words, lot of irony, lot of sarcasm. We look at this lady, a maiden who is crying alone. How does he address? If you see, how does he address them? The maiden. You can see, you can recall. Very good. Do not weep, maiden, for war is kind. Can you see the abstract concepts hidden inside this stanza and the line, do not weep, maiden, for war is kind. Look at the pathetic side of that small child who is in tears. How does the poet address this child? Yes, do not weep, babe, for war is kind. Can war be kind? That's a question in your mind. You can nicely read and write your answers. The last one is very practical, children. Mother, whose heart hung humble as a button on the bright, splendid shroud of your son, mother is addressed. And her heart to be taken out, and to be on the splendid shroud of the sun. Shroud is a piece of cloth used to cover the dead body of the sun, and that is just taken as a button. That means no sense at all. The mother's love for a child is not recognized. Can you see how effectively, how nicely the poet has highlighted the brutality of war, the pathetic situation of war? Right. Another activity for you to think and be familiar with this poem. You are going to select the most suitable lines in the poem to suit the pictures given below. Study that picture. Those, I know, I am very happy, dear students in this country, now no more wars for you. During our time, we experienced. Now, no war, but in the world there are wars. We never think about another war in this world. This has a universal theme. And if you think about the poem, and if you find a suitable line, did you find? Well, these men were born to drill and die. You can see the colleagues taking their own coffins. Well, look at the next one. I hope you can find the appropriate line for this picture. Did you? Correct. Hoarse booming drums of the regiment. That means harsh sound of the drums of that particular regiment. Regiments have their own bands. When they go to the battlefront, they go with that drum beat, but it's not a very pleasant music. It's a very harsh sound. Hoarse booming drums are harsh sounds of the drums. Well, we never expect this type of a situation, children. What do you think? These are actual situations. Did you find a line? A field where 1,000 corpses lie. Hope you got it correct. Well, now let's look at this picture. Can you identify the correct line? Yes, very good. And the affrighted steed ran on alone. Can you see the steed? Steed is the horse. Steed is the horse here. Affrighted refers to a frightened horse. The reasons could be the steed also. Can this particular thing happen? Can you understand this had happened? At the battleground, when the horse was attacked or the soldier was attacked, the steed or the horse was frightened. The horse was frightened and it did not think about the soldier and ran on alone. The situation you can understand. Well, if you look at this, the next slide, you can see it very clearly, I hope. The trenchers, can you remember the word trenchers? You can see that. The stanza, the first one, above, you are going to find a particular line. Because your father tumbled in the yellow trenchers. Can you find the answer to suit for the next one? To suit for the picture? Yes, very good. Raged at his breast, gulped and died. You can see raged at his breast. There was anger in his chest because his thirst to fight was in a form of an anger. Gulped refers to swallowed. Swallowed what? The anger. Maybe the enemy's attack, that is also in a form of, and like you know, it's not something good, anger. Right, well, we'll look at the next one. The next picture. You can see a dead body and it's covered with a piece of cloth. How do you call the piece of cloth which is used to cover a dead body? Shroud. Yes. Mother whose heart hung humble as a button. Can you feel the answer? Well, on the bright, splendid shroud of your son is the answer. Very good. Now, let's discuss unexplained glory. Can you see? Unexplained glory. I have discussed with you. I am here to help you to recall what you have learned so far, and if you can interpret in few lines, that's better. This unexplained glory could be the idea or the concept of the soldiers who die in service on behalf of their countries. Maybe one particular meaning could be the soldier's thought or the concept of dying while doing service. Because of that, sometimes mothers, wives and others feel comfortable to send their loved ones, boys, as soldiers. That type of a concept is in the society. Unexplained glory. This is a glory, but it's not explained. Or vain, irrational, meaning of victory of war. What do you mean by that? Useless and actually hopeless meaning of victory of war. When there is a victory of war, they stabilize their standards. They become firm in their standards with their flags. The flags may be referring to the particular nation, maybe the particular country. They try to show their strength by those wavering flags. After winning a war, they stand with the flag. This unexplained glory, can you understand? Maybe their concept or the particular thoughts, emotions of, feelings of dying for the country as patriotic citizens, or winning a particular place, maybe after in order to stabilize or strengthen their military capacity and for their territorial integrity, they fight and win, and they confirm their victory with their flags. Another phrase that you should pay attention to is full phrase, the unexplained glory flies above them. This particular glory, it's unexplained glory, but that flies above them. Now, I told you this unexplained glory is the flag or simply the abstract notions of valor or the bravery that is associated with war. When you talk about war, battles, they talk about the bravery of soldiers, brave like lions. They fight for the country, for being patriotic like. So this is unexplained glory. Either way, that way or this way. This, however, you can understand it illustrates, this is not on the battlefield. Can you understand? This particular glory is not on the ground, not on the battleground. The concept of glory is not down with those people, those who are fighting. The flag is high above them. Can you see the contrast, the difference? It's not on the ground level. And demonstrating, this sometimes demonstrate or show or give an idea for us to think about these lofty ideals. That means very high opinions about winning a war. But actual situation is there are horrible, terrible battlegrounds where you find 1,000 corpses lying and weeping maidens, babes and mothers. Right. The unexplained glory flies above them. If we are to discuss further, remember in your answers, critically analyzing questions. When you analyze questions, when you write critical comments, please remember these points. These can be useful. Pointlessness of war. Through the poem War is Kind, Stephen Crane is going to give an idea about pointlessness of war. It's pointless if mothers, babes, maidens are going to worry and cry after all. Will there be any kind of a use through a war? Then another fact that you can think is worthless, unreasonable victory of war. If nations try to find and fight one another, it's worthless, unreasonable to kill their own human resources. Right. Then certain ones, ridiculousness of the military beliefs. Ridiculousness is you can laugh at the beliefs. Are we born to drill and die? The concept is very ridiculous. Military beliefs, some people think you must train, do the service and die. Those beliefs are challenged through this poem. Can you understand? Yes. I hope to discuss certain literary devices with you. From the beginning until the end, you find Stephen Crane has used successfully this irony or sarcasm as one of the main techniques. Right. You can understand, I know by now, this poem is a very good example of irony. What else? When it comes to irony, verbal irony plays a major role, and that you can find throughout the poem. Throughout the poem, you find the verbal irony. Another thing you find here is the repetition of do not weep, war is kind is used very effectively, and it is used ironically to negate the idea of the glory of victory of war. The glory or people, those who talk good about war, the victory about war is challenged with that particular ironical phrase, do not weep, war is kind. And when it comes to this irony or sarcasm, war is kind. Can war be kind now? Can you understand? War cannot be kind. It's irony. The technique he has used is irony. Another one, virtue of slaughter. What is virtue? Moral of slaughter. Slaughter is killing in, many, killing so many together. Slaughter. Do you find any moral? It's ironical. Excellence of killing. The flag is going to tell about excellence of killing. Will anybody be excellent by killing? Very ironical. So sarcastic. And splendid shroud. A shroud is a piece of cloth to cover the dead body of a person. And can it be splendid? A fine cloth? It's ironical. Can you understand? When you read a poem, the reader should not get carried away by the surface meaning. There is more depth of understanding in the given words. When you analytically look at it, these devices are really helpful to understand the real content in the poem. Well, another literary device that I have decided to discuss is the paradox. What do you mean by paradox? The poet bring out two contradictory situations together, two contrasting situations together, war and kindness. So, it's a paradox. Can you understand? We have discussed paradox before, and you can identify this war is kind is also a paradox. The next point that I would like to discuss you with is the literary device oxymoron. What is oxymoron? Oxymoron is a combination of contradictory or incongruous words. That means cruel kindness. Cruel is very wicked, not kind at all. Cruel kindness. So, can you find an example? Hope you found. Virtue of slaughter. Moral of killing so many. Slaughter, animals are slaughtered. In the world, animals are slaughtered for meat. So, can people be slaughtered? Here, Voice Kind, written by Stephen Crane, has used oxymoron, virtue of slaughter, right? To give further, to give a better idea about his theme, to convey the theme, right? Another literary device is repetition. And if you look at this poem, this is a fine example. This poem has lot of repetition. Certain phrases are repeated at several times. It is a technique embedded and used as an important part. Can you give an example? Right, very good. Do not weep. Voice kind is repeated, constantly repeated. I think you can find another sentence. Very good. A field where 1,000 corpses lie, third and fifth. So, with all these repetitive sentences, what can you endorse or what can you definitely say? You can definitely say this poem highlights that voice not kind at all. A field where 1,000 corpses lie says voice not kind at all, though the poet is calling those ones not to weep. Right. The simile that we are going to find in this poem, I hope you can find now, by now. Did you? Humble as a button. Humble as a button. Normally similes are compared using either like or as. Now, mother's heart humble as a button. There you get a simile. Shall we move on to another literary device? Before that, let me discuss emphasizes horror and the pity of war. This humble as a button, the idea behind it is emphasizes the horror and pity of war. Very good. Let me discuss another literary device, personification. Can you find now an example for this personification? Battle god. This is also really something that you should pay attention to. Battle god. And you get that line, great is the battle god, great, and his kingdom. Can you see the battle god is being personified? Actually, battleground is personified as a god, and his kingdom the poet is talking about. I want you to pay attention to this line, the phrase, great is the battle god, great and his kingdom. And this second stanza helps you to understand or gives an allusion, right, to a great battle god, and that great battle god, the great battle god looks over his kingdom. Normally we expect lot of soldiers to be there. I mean, reasonably there should be lot of warriors, but instead of that, in his kingdom you get a field where 1,000 corpses lie. Now, can this battle god be great? The poet has used great is the battle god, great and his kingdom. Can that kingdom be great with 1,000 corpses lying? There is a kind of a very abstract meaning. Sarcasm is embedded. Can you understand these lines? That is why we say he has used perfect diction. Right. Well, we'll look at another point. Alliteration is another device technique used by the poet. Can you remember what alliteration is? Can you find an answer? Yes, the consonant the sound. Drill and die. In the second stanza you get the sound. Another one you can find in the last stanza, the fifth one, heart hung humble. Her sound, heart hung humble. Good examples for alliteration. Well, another literary device that you can nicely talk about is graphic description of the battlefield. If you go through from top to bottom, from the first stanza to the fifth stanza, you will get it very clearly. Another important point is visual imagery. Hope you had very good images by reading the poem A Frighted Steed. One example, a field where 1,000 corpses lie. Throughout you can see a nice kind of a movie, as if you are looking at a movie. Everything is in front of your eyes. You can imagine when you read this poem. So this poem, Voice Kind, is full of visual imagery. Let me discuss this point, onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia, an example that we can discuss is booming drums. Booming drums. Well, I need to discuss another important literary device, that is metaphor. Can you find an answer? Little souls. So here little souls, soldiers are introduced as little souls. Souls, that means they are having not lot of experience, they don't have lot of experience, immaturity of soldiers, and they are enlisted to the particular regiments at their young age. They cannot take decisions, so they are compared, the soldiers are compared as inexperienced people, those who are forced to join the military forces at a quite young age. Right. There are symbols. If you look at the symbol, the eagle is to connote power. Well, the tone of the poet, actually from the first stanzas to the last one, you can see it's very critical and so sarcastic. I have given enough examples for that. The theme, let us discuss the theme. And this theme involves the negation of the glorification of war. The theme involves in not glorifying the war. And you can see it has a universal value. And it surpasses time. This is common for everywhere in the world. And especially if we discuss the themes, you can understand the senseless killing in war is emphasized. Another theme, under the theme, soldiers as sword meet, we can have that point. Another point is the horror of war. Wives and children as victims of war is also, I have discussed beforehand, this is also one of the themes highlighted. And this comes under life, and all these lives are at a risk because of this senseless, hopeless war. Right. An indifferent attitude to war, people's attitudes about the war is also highlighted through this poem. And you can understand the fabricated or splendor or grandeur or the majesty of war is, of course, is challenged with the grim realities and the horrendous aspects of war. Actually speaking, this poet criticizes the glorification of war. We cannot glorify the war. The poem, the summary, you can see the narrator addresses a maiden, a babe, a mother, and says about or highlight the futility of war. And the poet criticizes the war. He does that directly. He doesn't do that directly. He mocks at the people who glorify it in a subtle manner, very subtle, very cute manner. And the whole poem has a militaristic feel if you go through. But emotional and chaotic subject matter you can describe in your words if you have listened to this. So, I must tell you, my dear students, this poem, War is Kind, illustrates about the ordinary masses who suffer in a war and the bitter irony of war. And this poem gives an eye-opener, highlights certain points, harshness and the worries for dying soldiers and their weeping loved ones. I hope by now you have got a very clear understanding about this War is Kind. If you have missed anything, don't worry. Please log on to channel NI on YouTube and do your reference. Until we meet again, take care, stay safe. Goodbye.